Hey everyone, and welcome back to the final coat, the skim coat of the drywall taping. And in this version, this is just going to be examining the corner beads and I guess just the process, not necessarily the technique, but the process and what are we doing, pretty much, just covering the basics. And in the skim coat version of taping, really all you're trying to do is put on a very thin layer of mud um, on the surface or on the area, a very thin layer, a very smooth, silky, thin layer of mud on the wall, and then taking it off in a sense. Now your tool is flat and very rigid or solid. You know, some of your blades may be softer, some of your tool's blade may be a bit more flexible, but generally speaking, um, your blade will cause that flat edge to exist. So all you need to do when you're wiping is just make a consistent pull across the surface. There's not much to do other than that. But the real thing here is all about putting on a very thin layer, making sure your mud is clean, and just giving it a consistent, even pull. In this case, you've already filled up the corner bead. You've already gotten your corner bead to a flat level, so to speak. And all you're trying to do is take out the imperfection that is created as a natural course, right? Naturally, your mud sometimes tend to have a little bubble or aeration in there where the air tries to come out of the material, and then it causes these little dimples in the mud. Um, I always say that the best way to think about a skim coat is to pretty up the mud. Sorry, to pretty up the wall. You're trying to make the wall pretty, right? So you're gonna put on a nice, thin, beautiful layer of mud, and this is the general same mud. The same mud you use to cover the wall is the exact same mud you use to skim the wall. It's just that it's more thinner and a bit more manageable. Let's call it that, right? So it's nothing special, realistically. It's just a thin layer of mud applied to the wall, and literally you're trying to wipe it off as much as possible. Now, sometimes there's exceptions to the rule where you might have to leave a little bit and float the trowel or your knife across the joint or across the corner bead to make it flat. But technically speaking, um, it's just a flat sweep across the area pretty much. Now, you might end up with sometimes a little bit of a line or a little bit of a high point line is what I would call it. It's a high point line where the edge of your trowel is on the edge, leaving a little bit of a mud debris behind. But don't go too crazy about those things. The most important thing is to make sure that the surface that you just filled is nice, clean, and consistent, right? If you follow that method, you should be okay doing taping. Nice, clean, even, consistent um, flow of your tool, right? As seen in this example here. Now, I know for some people it's very hard to get the whole thing because sometimes that mud does fall off. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. But practice makes perfect, right? Now, there's many ways to do it. You saw me do one side and then the other, but you can also do the side and then the top. You can do the bottom of the corner bead and then do the top of the corner bead. You know, it doesn't matter how you do it realistically. All that matters is that you give it a nice, clean finish. Again, this is skim coat, so you're not trying to fill it. You're just trying to skim it. And the word says it all. It's a skim coat, right? So you're not trying to leave a heavy duty amount of mud on the wall. You're just trying to leave just enough mud on the wall to make the wall pretty. And that generally covers your corner bead. Nothing too crazy about it, nothing too fancy about it. Okay, so we've covered the corner bead just now, and now you're looking at the inside corner. Now the inside corner can be tricky sometimes because um, the mud is already on the inside corner, and sometimes it's hard to see specifically what's wrong, right? So it's always good to walk with a light, to have a nice bright light. In this scenario, there's a light back there that I'm traveling with. You can't see the light, but the light is there, obviously, because the air that I'm working in is very lit. It's very bright. And just before I started, you saw that little area right there was a bit messy, and this is how you deal with it. Sometimes you can do one corner at a time, like one side at a time, but sometimes you can do two sides. Depends on how, experienced you are, depends on how much you've practiced with your knife, but you can do two sides at the same time. Especially when the corner is dry already, when you've already put the machine in there, it already creates a corner for you to follow. All you have to do is be delicate about how you go ahead. Now, these little spots are just details, but the real thing that you're looking out for is the three-way. The three-way is where it gets tricky. And right here is the three-way. And the three-way is where the corners meet. All the corners meet at one point, and in that corner, you want to beef it up a bit. You want to smooth it out a bit. You want to put extra care in this particular area. For the main reason that, generally speaking, your eye falls here. Like, when I say that, how do I mean by that? Usually it's the edges where your eyes generally fall. So inside the corners, your eyes are going to see that all the time. Your corner beads, your eyes are going to naturally fall towards the corner bead. If there is a opening where the light is hitting, your eyes are going to fall there. So you want to pay extra attention to those areas. Not saying, how do I say now? You will make mistakes. Be forgiven, right? Be a little bit forgiving to yourself. You will make mistakes. You can sand it out, you can go back over it. But in the three ways, always, your eyes are going to fall there because, like I said, it's where the corners meet. It's going to a point. And the point of the three-way is to fill that area out with extra care to make sure that when your eyes fall there, there's nothing to say, oh, this corner looks a little bit thin, or, you know. So practice on the three-way is very important. And as you can see, I'm doing three different directions. They're all going in three different directions. And that's because it makes the illusion much more stronger when you do it this way. The illusion that your corners are like, you know, I don't know the word to express it, but the thing is that you're trying to make that corner a magnificent area to look at, is what you're trying to do. It should be sharp, it should be clean, and it is a focus point. So imagine that you're trying to do your best in one area. This is the area that you really need to master. Now, realistically speaking, this video I'm not going to contain everything in my three-way here. I'm just trying to cover why you're doing it and how to do it. Also, on the other side of that corner, you just saw me do the outside of that corner, your eye will fall there. Your eye will naturally fall to an area like that. So make sure you put a little bit of time and effort into an area on the opposite side of the three-way also. And this is a great example of inside corners in three-way, because this little area has a lot of bulk and a lot of twist, a lot of turn. And how do you manage this area? You have to put a lot of work into making this area finessed, let's say. As we move along, you're going to notice that the bottom side of this particular corner that I'm doing right here, I'm just about to get to it, but even that bottom side needs to be done also. Again, more details in the corner. Sometimes you notice something that the machine missed. You want to get to it, for example, right? You don't want to leave it out. Now, here's that tricky spot I was telling you about, the bottom corner right there. I know the camera isn't perfectly, showing it, but you can see it, that this bottom edge here needs a bit of attention. And that's what I do. I just go in there, and usually you can get away with something like this. That's your end result right there. It's beautiful, it's nice, it's clean. It's nothing fancy. You're just putting some mud in and taking it back out. And that's generally it, so to speak. It's very hard to, how do I say, describe three ways. It's very hard to explain what's going on in the technique. But what really matters is that you put a nice, clean, flat skim coat on it. And while you're doing your skim coat level, I'm going to say again and over, always try to add a little bit of mud to your nail heads. Check your nail heads. Check everything. You're checking everything at this point. And I guess that's it, pretty much. Your final product is what you see here, right? It should look something like this. A line like this, these are one of the lines I was telling you about. These little lines, they'll be sanded out. Those little lines, they'll be sanded out. but it's more important for your trowel to be flat and consistent, because sometimes you can cause wave, and that can be a problem. Your three-way, look at that three-way, that's very sharp. There's that line I told you about, that characteristics line right there. Um, it'll be sanded out. That's not an issue. But the better you do the job, the less you're sanding. And the nail heads, like I said before, hit them, sand them out. Some level of edges can be sanded out, but the less you have, the less you sand, right? So, but that's it. That's really it. Practice makes perfect. Just keep going at it. Don't put on too much mud. It's always better to build up than it is to sand down. That's something that you should always try to keep in mind. It's better to build it up and put another layer on. And there's no real rules saying it has to be 3 coats. You can go over it 4 times, 5 times if you have to. But what matters is that you don't sand or overwork. All right? Well, keep on practicing. And until the next time, have a good day.